Can I not do with you as this potter? Says the Lord. Look, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house. Now the Bible teaches us first that which is spiritual, natural that which first that which is natural, natural that which is spiritual. What God is saying to Israel, he also says to his church. And the message that you and I have to understand as believers is the process of God. And what I believe we need to understand as a church, and again, after 29 years of pastoring here, and about 25 of those being the Potter's House, I have learned the challenge of remaining focused because things happen at all your time, all your For us, this is what God calls us to be. A place where broken vessels are made whole.
We are currently sitting at what used to be known as the El Paso Drive Church of God, where 29 years ago, my parents, Pastor Tim and Becky OIdfield, came to pastor an incredible group of people into the future. Right now, you are sitting in the fruit of that ministry. That ministry is now known as the Potter's House, where countless lives have been touched because of the ministry and the anointing and the calling that God placed on my parents' life. In this video, you're going to hear from people who have been intrinsically and so deliberately connected by God to my parents to see what God could do in Columbus through the Potter's House and through their lives. Many people who were connected to my parents aren't a part of this video, and we honor and celebrate them. But there are many who are, and we are excited for you to hear their stories and their perspective on Pastors Tim and Becky OIdfield. These are their stories.
Well, I wouldn't be here right now. If it wasn't for them, Pastor and Becky believing in me, I would not went very far in the kingdom, I don't believe. I never would have traveled the world with him. I never would have been over missions at one time, never would have been over a ministry called Men and Women of Action. Never would have been an elder. I never would. He just believed. They both pushed us. He pushed us. Said, Pastor, I don't want to be elder. You're going to be an elder. So.
Yeah. So when I think about stories that Pastor Tim has shared, there's one specifically that always impacted me. I was young when I came into my faith journey, as well as accepting the call of God on my life. And Pastor Tim was also young. And there's a story he talks about often where he and a friend, I believe they were in their 20s, would come into the church, even break into the church if they needed to before the pastor gave them the key. And they would just seek the face of God. They would pray deep into the night and sometimes all night. And that story always left an incredible impression and impact on me. And I love every time he shares that.
Pastor Oldfield and Becky, congratulations on this new season and this next chapter of your lives. Today is a momentous day, and Sunny and I just love you. We think the world of you. But 3 words that come to mind to describe who you guys are and what you mean to us are spiritual parents, legacy, and endurance.
I remember when we, all the way back at El Paso Drive, coming down that drive and breaking ground, and I remember as a church not even knowing like the impact this church would have on my life, my family, in this city. And it has just been such a journey that I am so honored to be a part of. And I'm so glad that God kept us and kept you guys.
Like, everybody here is saved. Why am I preaching Jesus? Why am I preaching salvation? And unbeknownst to him, one of the husband of the wives was in the foyer. He ended up getting saved, to cut the long story short. And I think that speaks to me, knowing how Pastor has always been led by the Spirit of God, and really ministers to my heart the story of how even the small listening of the small prompting of the Spirit leads to salvation.
I think when I saw these questions, I thought way back to when me and Robin were first married, and we were meeting with Pastor Oldfield in his office at El Paso Drive Church of God, and we were preparing for our wedding, and just again, the wisdom and direction that he gave in those meetings, and the love that came forward when he was speaking to us as he prepared us for marriage. And then to watch Becky as she helped Robin get ready on her wedding day, it's just a good memory that I have of them. Becky was just meticulous about what the church looked like and how the decorations were. And just as everything flowed for wedding day, it was just something that has always been kind of dear to both of our hearts, mine and Robin's, that we just love that story so much about them.
How God used them to impact my life is just showing, one, the love during that time. And from that time forward, they never, we had people that pushed away from us, we had people that just wanted to know our business, but they impacted me in such a way that watching them put us first over their grief, watching them shelter us when necessary, being devoted to every need that we had, they were phenomenal, and it impacted my life in such a way that it helped me to see the love of Christ, helped me to see that I can make it through this because I do have community, I do have support, I have love, and I have no doubt in my mind that they prayed for us during that time in such a way that helped us get through it.
The time when I came, the church was a little different in reference to just the color barriers. And not one time in all of these years did Pastor Oldfield ever make me feel any less than because of the color of my skin. But I know that he always had my back, even when it wasn't popular to do. And because of that, I gained an appreciation for him that I don't know if he really understands or knows.
That my wife and I have experienced over the years have all happened within our time here at Potter's House, and some of the hardest things, some of the most tragic things. And Pastor Tim and Becky just have always been there, no matter whether it was mountaintop seasons or whether it was seasons of walking in the valley. And it's just amazing to be able to be the fruit of their ministry. And no matter where we go, no matter what we do for the rest of our lives, Lauren and I and our family, we will be able to acknowledge just the hand that Pastor Tim and Becky have had on and in what God is doing through our lives.
So my answer is probably different than everybody but Dave and John, who are also in this video. But they were obviously the best parents that we could ever ask for. And they raised us to be godly. They raised us to be God-fearing. My dad raised us to love our wives and as Christ loved the church, and to raise our sons, our daughters, in the same way that he raised us, which was God-fearing, integral, full of character, full of love and grace, but also full of discipline, a lot of discipline. And so I'm just thankful for that, and that God would choose them to be my parents, to raise me in this life.
The first word I picked is genuine. Genuine. They're the real deal. The second word I picked is faithful, both to God and to family. And the third word that I picked is anointed. They're anointed and chosen and used by God. And on a personal level, two words I would use to describe them would be my pastor and my friend.
Faithful and a great sense of humor. On that topic, when many years ago, Pastor went to his first Christmas banquet. It was at the Der Dutchman, and we had a tradition at the time that we'd put someone each year in these very large red long underwear. So he and I believe his wife were put into these long underwear, and then everybody at the banquet stuffed balloons in, and then it was quite an adventure to watch someone pop those balloons. So watching our brand new pastor go through that event was unforgettable.
And also I would say heroic. And I know when I say heroic, my dad's probably sitting there with a smirk, looking over his shoulder, flexing a little bit, thinking about heroic. But the way that they've acted, they're most definitely my heroes. They've shown me how to act both spiritually and how to treat Sarah and Levi, as well as just how to be a better man and a better husband in my life.
I've had the honor and privilege of serving under them for the last 20-some years. I actually began here in 1999. And they've just been a great example to every facet of life. As I've said, they were great parents, and they always inspired us to be better parents and to raise our level of parenting.
I have had the privilege of working with Becky in the church office. She was always pleasant and very efficient. Many times I would go to Becky with prayer requests, and even though she was busy, she would stop what she was doing and listen attentively. And I knew she would pray about the situation. I am so glad to have Becky for a friend.
Yeah, the first time I met Pastor and Becky, I was almost 13, and my family had just transitioned to the Potter's house. And it was a really rocky time in my life. A lot of friends had changed, my church home had changed, and I just remember that really being the birth of my spiritual walk. I got saved when I was young, but they brought such a hunger and thirst for the Word and for more of Christ in my life, and I'm forever grateful for that. Beyond the obvious effects that their life has had in my husband and all they've invested in him, and now I get to be their daughter-in-law.
100%. We've been close. I'll never forget the day that we walked into this church we're in right now, and the first thing that Pastor and Becky did, they walked over to us and said, "We've been praying. We've been waiting."
In a positive way is that they've showed me in ministry how to live authentically. I got married to David very young at 18, and we went straight into ministry together. And I really had no gauge for what we were stepping into, but being able to watch them and see how they lived their life authentically through the Lord and how they led people and loved people was really a example for me on how to step into this new role that I found myself in. So it's something I'm very, very grateful for, and I love them very much.
Pastor Oldfield's meant a lot to me through the years. Obviously, my family's been raised under his ministry. He's been my ministry partner as I've attempted to come alongside him, help him to be successful. Words cannot express my gratefulness for the opportunity he's given.
I think this one really speaks more to my mom. And probably something that I have gathered from her is once she gets her mind on something, she does not relent. My dad a lot of times calls me my mom when I get my mind on something and I do not give up. And I think a lot about that word persistent when I think of my mom.
They've always been consistent in showing God through their marriage and how we should act in our marriage, and we're in front of other people. So they've always been very consistent in showing God through who they are as people and who they are together as one.
A legacy. A legacy is planting seeds in a garden that you might not get to see. A legacy is knowing where you came from, recognizing your past, and enjoying the journey along the way. A legacy is sowing those seeds into future generations. It's sowing seeds into what might be tomorrow. The Potter's House is a place where we honor those who came before us. The Potter's House is a place where we celebrate where we are now. The Potter's House is a place where we step into the future. And more than anything, the Potter's House is a place where the broken are made whole.
1, 2, 3.